Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark, and I am desperately trying to mute my phone because I am a noob. Hi, welcome back, everyone. We're going to be talking Mandalorian today, but first, let me introduce the co-host, John, in the middle here, Nessie all the way over on the end, and we have a couple of great returning guests, two of my personal favorites. Yes, I play favorites, Cecilia and Pat. You guys have been on the channel at least once before each. I think, Pat, you've been on twice.
Yeah.
But we're very happy to have you back to talk about season 2 of The Mandalorian. But before we do that, I just want to take a moment to say rest in peace to the amazing David Prowse, who is, we found out this morning that he passed away. The physicality of Darth Vader comes from that man. We all associate James Earl Jones with being the voice, but David Prowse put in a lot of work to make that character the icon he is. So just wherever you are, man, we appreciate what you did for us as a fan community. Less serious, I had another mishap. We were attacked by rebels last night, and if you know me, this is the coffee cup I drink out of every week, and I've had it I've had it for years and years, and they finally got through, and there was a crack that runs the entire length of the thing, and it won't hold coffee anymore. So bye, you have served me well, but the rebels finally blew up the Death Star. The last thing I want to say is that I am supposed to have a giveaway for international viewers, and I've had my teenage daughter with me all week, and I'm not used to that. And let's just say, where does one find time to do anything with a teenager in the house? I don't know. So we're going to do it. We were going to announce the giveaway winner next week during my birthday live stream. We're going to do the questions at the beginning. We'll announce a winner at the end. So just, thank you for bearing with me and my occasionally being crap, because teenagers are tough to deal with. Okay. So now that all that's out of the way, welcome, and let's talk about The Mandalorian Season 2. I'm going to start with our sort of newest addition, Cecilia.
Hi.
We've had 5 chapters so far. Is there a moment or a chapter or a character or whatever that really stands out as like, oh, this is the one that's getting me. This is the one that really I'm in love with so far.
Oh, well, I really like the Ahsoka adaptation, real life adaptation. It was pretty amazing. Rosario Dawson did a very amazing job. I mean, I didn't really watched Clone Wars and Rebels, but I know a lot about the character because, well, my stepson is very, as you can see, this is his room actually, and he's pretty obsessed with Star Wars, and he's always talking about it. So thanks to him, I know that she did a pretty amazing job. And visually, it's very appealing, and I really liked how she interacted with Mando and Grogu.
Now, hold your groans, Stephen.
I'm okay. Real talk. I'm not a fan of the name Grogu, but
I love it.
If I'm being honest, like there are a lot of Star Wars names that sound ridiculous the first time you hear them, and then after a while, no, it's just that person. So,
and he might have
give it time; it'll grow on me, I'm sure. But right now, I'm just like Grogu, really?
Well, he might have.
It kind of doesn't matter because we are going to still call him the kid or baby Yoda. So it really makes no difference. But well, it's good to know that his name is Grogu.
Right.
Yeah, and he has a backstory now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he does.
And
yes.
An interesting backstory. And I actually saw something this morning as I was doing a little bit of research. If he is 50 years old in 9 ABY, then that means he was born in 41 BBY.
Mm-hmm.
Is the same year that Anakin Skywalker was born.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You did the math.
A plus.
Balance, dude. Balance.
Hold on. That's too good. That's too good. Sure. Okay. Well, so Ahsoka, that was the thing that really. Right on. Pat, how about you? Is there a moment or a character or scene reveal, something like that really just blew you away?
You know, when Katie Sackhoff took off her helmet to reveal herself as Katie Sackhoff, I was so excited. But the funny thing is that I didn't recognize her at first. I thought, wow, she really looks like Bo-Katan. And then I was like, oh, that's Starbucks. That's so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was like a really, really cool moment for me.
Right on. Are you a big Bo-Katan fan?
Now, honestly, I have not seen Clone Wars, but I knew who Bo-Katan was, and I knew what she looked like. Because it's not that I have anything against the animated series. I just don't have a chance really to watch them. But you can't have friends who are Star Wars fans and have Twitter friends who are Star Wars fans and not know a lot of details about Clone Wars and Rebels.
That's right.
Yeah, totally.
I'm just going to tie all you guys down and turn on both Clone Wars and Rebels in front of you and make you just do a marathon of the whole thing.
Well, it's so hard to have seen everything or have read everything because in general I've only seen the movies. I've read the Timothy Zahn books, so I know who Admiral Thrawn is, and I know that he's in the other series. But I wasn't one who read all of the books, and so for me watching the Mandalorian, I don't have a lot of baggage to get in the way of me enjoying it or not enjoying it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm going to throw it up to Nessie now. Nessie, what was that moment, that character or something?
Oh, well, it wasn't so much a character as, well, maybe so. Little column A, little column B. For the first time on Mandalorian, they said the word Darksaber. And 2 was the other name drop, which was Grand Admiral Thrawn. So those were 2 boom, boom name drops right there that just kind of gave me chills. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, that's a good 1-2 punch of name drops. They did a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Before I make the point I'm about to make, John, I would like to hear from you. What was your moment?
Is there anything left, John?
Oh, great. You said it
same as there.
It's like, I better rush through so Stephen can make his point. No, I will say, since both Ahsoka and Bo-Katan have been mentioned, I still want to mention them, but a different aspect of what made sort of those moments so special is I can hear myself. Sorry. But it's the way visually those characters were represented on screen, and I'm sure we have Dave Filoni to credit for a lot of that for being exacting. First with Bo-Katan, the way Katie Sackhoff carried herself as Bo-Katan heads into a fight, and her walk and posture and everything was so perfectly Bo-Katan. And as well as Ahsoka, when those first few minutes on screen, especially the way she fights and holds her sabers, even if I'm gonna have a little trouble for just a little while getting used to somebody who isn't Ashley Eckstein, acting and voicing Ahsoka. But as far as the physical portrayal of the character, I could not be any more ecstatic, because they just absolutely nailed it. So hats off to Rosario Dawson for doing her homework, and for the way that Dave Filoni shot the episode as well, so that we're never in doubt that we're seeing Ahsoka on screen. And so that's what I would say made me kind of the happiest.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Rosario really brought it to this character. I mean, I've been a fan of hers since, during the Marvel Netflix phase where she played the nurse.
The night nurse.
Yeah, Carrie. In like Luke Cage, and especially in oh crap. Well, she was in Punisher and Daredevil. That's it. And Daredevil. How can I forget Daredevil? But she really played like a very good character. She was physical. She was able to, normal person keeping up with these like heroic types. So I knew she could play a physical character, and she really brought it.
But I do also want to just slip in one more thing, which is that everything about the way that sort of Baby Yoda, sort of his.
I'm sorry, who? Don't you mean Grogu?
Sorry, yeah, you're right. I
was about to say the same thing.
The way that Grogu sort of relates to Din and the bond that he feels, and like in the second episode, after he's being held by the guy who's trying to capture Mando and get his armor, and he lets him go. The way Grogu waddles over to Mando, and it's like, "Come here, Daddy." It's just so adorable.
Yeah. And it really tells you a lot about their relationship, even though that Mando isn't the warmest person ever. But he definitely feels something for this boy that actually Ahsoka pointed it out really accurately. And that was the whole reason why she was refused to... But she refused to train him because of this bond, and that was interesting to see. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, but it also makes sense.
Agreed.
Yeah, I do actually want to bring up, since it has been mentioned in the chat, we'll just say something about it really quick. Yes, I think we're all cognizant of the allegations which have been made against Rosario Dawson. There was an excellent article written up, it escapes me, written by who's somebody who's knowledgeable in the court proceedings and all that. My understanding is that a great number of the charges were dropped. There's still one outstanding charge. I don't remember the exact details, but I would say read up on it. It is something to be taken very seriously. And I think we're all aware of that. For the purposes of this discussion, I think, for myself, I'll remain focused on sort of, the character and the portrayal of the said character. But that said, everyone should go ahead and read up on this, because I think it is important to be aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to agree in that, like, we're here to discuss the television show, not necessarily the personal lives of the people who are on that show. Rosario Dawson's not the only one who has things going on, who's on this show.
Yeah. So
like, I'll be happy to have that conversation with you sometime, not live on the air. Mm-hmm. So hit me up. You know where to find me. I'm on Twitter and Slack. You know where to find me. Anyway, so I guess the point I want to make is that the thing I think that I got the most joy out of was actually in chapter 10, I think, when Aemy Sedaris' character, Peli Motto, showed up again, because I freaking love that character. She's kind of a silly character in a lot of ways, but like, she just, the way Aemy Sedaris plays her is just so endearing to me. But the point I want to make is that every other instance that was mentioned as like a great moment is something from Star Wars past. Like, this show, this season, is really leaning on the nostalgia by bringing back people like Cobb Vanth and Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan, and the name drop of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Which I do want to point out, though, jumping off of something Pat was saying about having not read all the books. I have read certain books more of the new canon than the old stuff because I came into reading the books later. But I have not read the book in which Cobb Vanth played a part in. So actually, I had no idea that wasn't just a completely new character until someone had brought that up.
I'm just learning that this right now, that he was not a character for the show. So
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm dumb. I don't know things, but
you're far from dumb, sir.
I mean, the thing is that is one nice thing about the show is I feel that you don't need a lot of information to just enjoy the show. The marshal of the little town, Cobb. I didn't need a backstory for him. Now, if I did have that backstory, I'm sure I would be that much more excited about it. But he's just a great character all around, and it was a great episode. So that's one of the strengths I think of the show is that you might know a lot or you might not know very much, and you can still take a lot from it.
And I actually think one of the strengths of that episode is the fact that we actually do get a backstory for the character within the episode.
Yeah.
He is very well defined. I think some of my criticisms of last season's episodes was that there wasn't enough time to really bond with secondary characters who were being introduced each episode, and that episode felt as much Cobb Vanth's episode as Mando's, and they were sort of co-protagonists, and that's what made that episode really fun.
Okay, I'm guilty because actually there is a throwback thing that really got me, and it was in the Cobb Vanth episode, and that's when Tamura Morrison shows up right at the end.
Right
like,
on.
Oh, he could be a lot of different people, but like we're meant to think that he.
Come on, I think we know who he is.
Well, I mean, like we're meant to think that he's Boba Fett, but what if he's Rex?
No, I don't think he is.
I mean, they all look alike.
I'm so slow on. I'm so slow on the uptake that he turned around and I thought well clearly this is going to be like an important guy, and I thought he looks like Tamura Morrison, and then I thought and that's the guy who played Jango Fett. How cool that they got the actor who played Jango Fett to be in a Star Wars thing. Then I thought of course it's probably Boba Fett. Probably. It took me a while to get there.
I like that idea, Anna, that the child chooses the way of the Mandalore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is leading towards him calling out to a Jedi coming to pick him up and take him off.
Just picture him with a tiny armor.
And are the ears going to come out of the helmet?
Yeah, I know. It's so cute.
I need
but
he
would
this
be
now.
a force-sensitive Mandalore.
I think I saw Sanrixian in the chat earlier. We need Baby Yoda Mandalorian helmet. I'm just saying.
Just pile on her work.
I know you're busy, but like, I also need it so that I don't die.
I know, but we need an extra detail for that armor. We need the earrings to be able to move.
Yeah, it's got to have fully articulated ears.
Yes.
Okay.
Those ears have the.
Let's just give him the dark saber too while we're at it. Let's complete the whole package.
I mean, he's force sensitive. He could use it clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess now I normally do not try to have much of a direction, but in order to keep this from getting massively chaotic, what do you say we kind of run through the episodes one at a time?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Okay, Chapter 9 was called The Marshal. And this is when
Timothy Oliphant. That's all I have to say about this episode.
He was fantastic. And I really...
Well, I think John and I both loved him in Deadwood and the character Marshall that he played.
And Justified. He actually,
Justified,
his portrayal in this episode reminded me a lot of Raylan Givens from Justified.
I mean, the man can play a marshal. Let's just say that. He's got it down.
but I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for it right now. So yeah. What a way to start when we come back too, though, because it was a long episode. It was an hour long, and it had a very almost like entire Western film.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, the whole
yeah.
series does.
Yeah, but this
Space
one
Western.
especially desert and like oppressed people, and I also really appreciated how at this point they're treating Tuscans as like
People.
a people group that aren't meant to be just slaughtered because they're Tuscan Raiders
Right.
or sand, heaven forbid, sand people. I think that's a racist term.
It was a really good episode to kind of call back to the original Star Wars, which had like a lot of references to Dune, and so then if you have like a very Dune specific aspect going on with them dealing with the Krayt Dragon, it was great. It was great to see that.
Yeah, because there is a Krayt Dragon skeleton in episode 4.
Yep.
Mhm.
Out in the Dune Sea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty cool that they dropped the little nuggets like, oh, the Krayt Dragon's living in this cave. Well, what cave? Well, they just eat out a whole Sarlacc. Just eat the Sarlacc and take over the cave. So you're getting the tie into the Sarlacc right there too, which kind of is like little hints, little hints.
Yeah. And it's nice the way they're sort of tying it together behind the scenes. I don't know that this episode has a whole lot of looking back to the bigger story having to do with Moff Gideon and all of that, but like, I guess as an aside, I do appreciate that they're doing that they're trying to do their storytelling like not just here you go, here you go, here you go. They're not spoon feeding it to us, I guess.
Well, I think there are honestly probably two audiences for this show. There are the people who are interested in sort of the connections to the larger lore and, what's the purpose of, the Empire needing, what's left of the Empire needing Grogu's blood and all that. And then there's the people who have come to the show because it's, Star Wars as an all-out Western and they enjoy that stuff. So I actually think it was good for them to start off with an episode that was really meaty and also sort of traded in those classic Western tropes and sort of Baby Yoda isn't even a focal point of the episode. He's there, but he's kind of just in support, and the story is about Mando going to help out of town, and and you've got sort of stereotypical Marshall, played with glee by Timothy Oliphant. And it really is that sort of classic Western. And,
right.
and that gives, and because the episode is so big, when it aired, I said it felt like it was feature film scale. It felt that big. And so you give that to the audience and then with the next episode, then you dive into sort of the Star Wars connections and the larger story. And I thought it was a great way to start off.
I agree. And they fooled me for a moment, because when he took off the helmet, I was like, oh, that he's not the same, something's not going to go right here.
There are rules, young man. There are rules about that helmet.
Like, this is the way. That's not the way.
Yes.
But I think I was fairly convinced that he was going to be sort of like the authoritarian figure in the town. I actually thought he was going to end up being a bad guy.
No, but he ended up being a servant leader.
Yeah. Well, and just because when you have a group of people that have difficulty defending themselves and then somebody rolls into town and they've got a really big stick to protect them all with, sometimes they turn that stick on the people, and that's a trope that exists in Westerns too, the corrupt sheriff or what have you, I thought that's what we were going to get. I'm very happy it's not what we got, because I thought Cobb Vanth was fantastic. And like that armor, it looks so terrible on him. I love it.
Yeah, it's like you see him walk on, and your first thinking is, well, first the which, by the way, I want to say the bartender is played by W. Earl Brown, who also played in Deadwood as Al Swearengen's number 2.
Yeah.
Who I didn't
Who was
recognize.
the barkeeper? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him first because he's under all those prosthetics and stuff. But when I read his name afterwards, I'm like, oh my God, that's such a great callback to Deadwood and all that stuff. But he says to Amanda, take a look for yourself. And so that as a fan, you've been hearing all this speculation over the break and like, oh my God, is it Boba Fett is here? And then you look over, and for a split second, you're like, oh my God, is it? But something's off. Something's not right. Just it doesn't fit him right. His posture.
It almost looks like a bad cosplay or something.
Right. And then he starts talking. I'm like, that's Timothy Oliphant. It's not Boba Fett.
Yeah, like a Halloween improvised costume, or I don't know, it's just a bad cosplay or something.
Yeah.
And it added a fun factor to that character that I really appreciated, and it immediately told me that it was not going to be that bad, as you said, Stephen. That what we expect from a leader from a community like this that is in a very trouble area. But yeah, that was very fun to watch, and I was really happy too that it turned out to be a good person, a servant leader who actually cared about his people, and that was pretty fun. And when you mentioned the Dune vibes, well, actually, it makes sense. Well, I don't know, Jodorowsky's Dune version, when it was pretty definite that it was not going to be doable. All those sketches and all that art went into very different projects, and some of those actually ended up in Star Wars.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got to ask. Phil H. just wants to know, what does Patrick think?
About what? Can you narrow that down? About what?
About life.
What
about the lack of Ewoks, Patrick? Aren't you just torn up over that?
Always a gosh darn plus that there's no Ewoks. I can live a long life without more Ewoks.
Are you kidding me? I love Ewoks. I feel a debate session coming on in the future.
You don't have enough time for me to complain endlessly and bring the wine about Ewoks, but
Ewoks.
This is just me trolling.
They're just
because we've gone through this several times on Twitter.
Ewoks will cook you and eat you
Right on.
Then you wouldn't have been a fan of my dog. I had a dog that was a mix from a Shih Tzu and Boston Terrier, and looked exactly like an Ewok.
Now I think Ewoks are delightful and cute. I just did not want them in Return of the Jedi. I saw it way back when, and I was ready for like a planet of Wookiees, and I got Ewoks. It's okay.
It's from the chat.
Gone through the dryer, man.
It's from the chat comments that it's your opinion only.
Right. No,
everybody
fine,
loves Ewoks.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, okay. And heroes come in all sizes too.
Right.
You get enough Ewoks, you can pull down an AT-AT. It's fine.
Just put 3 Ewoks together and put code on them.
ATST, thank you.
ATST, okay. Mr. Pedantic.
Okay, so I will say this episode subverted my expectations a couple of times. For the first time, when I was surprised that Cobb Vanth wasn't a kind of a more sinister character, and the second time when the traditional like townsfolk versus the natives thing was set up, like they subverted that by the end, and they literally had to work together to get it done.
Yeah, and they brokered a peace out of the whole deal. If you don't break the peace, we won't break the peace. And
Right.
I did feel sorry for the Tusken Raiders, who were really the red shirts of the episode, because they were like, you go down there and make some noise and we'll see what happens. And it's like, man, poor Tusken Raiders. Oh. I should feel sorry for the Banthas also, who didn't do well in that
No
episode.
kidding.
Yeah. They're just like the goat tied out to, attract the tiger.
I think one of my favorite lines is when, before they get the townspeople and, the Tusken Raiders and Mando and Cobb Vanth go to scout it out, and Mando's kind of narrating to Cobb Vanth, like, what they've been doing. It's like, they feed it to keep it happy, and then the dragon, eats, the Tusken Raider instead of the Bantha, and Mando just kind of glances over. He's like, they're open to some fresh ideas.
I know, man. It was macabre but funny at the same time.
Yeah.
I just saw in chat. It's just, I have to. It's so dark. Because I've heard that before, like the Ewoks probably died in an extinction level impact event from wreckage from the Death Star 2.
I would not wish that on the Ewoks. So.
No, I don't think so, because our heroes are down there on the surface. They would have gotten vaporized too. So
they have spaceships to leave on. Look, it's going to take a long time for those fragments to get down. Space is big, so they got a few hours to party before they have to flee the coming apocalypse.
The rebellion would not have left the Ewoks to die like that. Sorry. Okay, can we focus on the actual episodes?
Can we focus on? That's like, how many times has that been said on this channel?
We can't really. All right.
And every channel suffers from that.
I will say at the end, Din gets the armor though. Like Cobb Vanth holds true to his word and turns it over. That would be tough to do, because I'm not sure what the going market rate for Beskar is, but it's apparently like extremely valuable. Mm-hmm. So to give up that much of it, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of value.
Yeah, well, not only have they gotten rid of the Krayt Dragon, but they've, struck a truce with the Tusken Raiders. So as Cobb Vanth says, the armor was well earned.
Yeah.
So I think he's happy to turn it over for what he's gotten in return.
Yeah, so long as his people are safe.
Right.
And I think that's what's incredibly admirable about the character is that, after the town initially falls to it's not the Tusken Raiders, but
the mining company.
Consortium.
Yeah. They he runs off, but when he sees his opportunity to go back and help, with the armor, he takes that opportunity. He doesn't just say, I'm going to look after myself. He cares about the town, and when he sees that he'll be able to do something for them, he takes that initiative and goes back. So I like the fact that he is portrayed as a good man.
Yeah, I see. There's some there's some conversation in the chat about whether it's Frog Lady or Fish Lady. Pretty sure it's Frog Lady.
Frog Lady.
I'd go with Frog.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think she's in the credits as Frog Lady.
I do want to say, before we move on to that stuff from episode 2, just so incredibly impressed by the scale of the action, the sequence in the first episode, and the way that the aspect ratio opens up, making it like an IMAX event at the end of the episode. And that's what I was saying when this episode felt like a feature film. It was directed by Jon Favreau, and you can tell he just brought it for this episode, so it felt enormous. get the dragon coming out and, you know, all those visual effects. And then when Mando and Cobb Vanth are, you know, jetting up to fire at it and stuff, it's just the scale of it was extremely impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I think Favreau is really good at that, like understanding where to place his camera, where to point it, how to frame it, to make action feel to scale and frenetic in a way that you know, he's talented. Obviously, he did the Iron Man, and you know, the Iron Man. Yeah, I'm getting old. I'm getting old. All I need to do is pluralize.
And you're the big Marvel fan, Steven.
Yeah, you know, the Iron Man's movie.
Yeah, I also like the Thor. The Thor was a good movie too.
The Thor, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Pat, I thank you for welcoming me so warmly to the, you know, to the halls of the aged.
Right.
Dad's Club.
Yep, Dad Club. So, anybody else have anything else to say about episode 1?
I just love that they just keep circling back around to Tatooine. You know, every so many episodes, they just circle back around there. It's kind of like coming home, even though that's, you know, it's not their home.
Yeah.
It's just a familiar setting, a familiar place for all of us to, you know, to start from. And the Outer Rim is, you know, all the worlds, so many of the worlds in the Outer Rim are just this, you know, edge of the civilization, whole Western vibe. So it just really hits home there.
It was just a really good reintroduction to the series to kick things off. And, you know, I thought it was just nice. It was nice to roll into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and give us something like Boba Fett's armor, and for him to have a reason to go back to Tatooine, and for Tamura Morrison to show up at the end. It just feels like it still understands that it's in the larger Star Wars universe, and yes, it can build its own mythology out from the characters they've got. But one of the things we all love is when they can find threads from the existing mythology that they can then weave into their own narrative. And I thought they did a great job here in episode 1 with Boba Fett and with Cobb Vanth.
And I do want to say one of my personal, you know, favorite callbacks, because I'm probably one of the, you know, 0.001% of Phantom Menace fans, but I love that Cobb Vanth is, you know, his speeder is, you know, made up of a pod racer engine.
Was it Anakin's old pod?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that is pretty awesome. Agreed. Okay, well, shall we move on to episode 10, The Passenger?
Sure.
Okay. So this is the one where where Grogu starts to commit genocide?
He was just hungry.
He was hungry.
So tasty.
I'm sure those eggs were so tasty. You just can't eat just one.
Like, I'm sorry. This is kind of one of those things where something, you know, initially you're like, oh my God, that's horrible. But then by the end of the episode, for some ungodly reason, it's hysterical. And when he eats that last egg, you know, before he goes through credits, I was just, because you think that maybe he's learned by then that he shouldn't be doing it. But no, he hasn't learned. He's hungry and he's gonna eat.
And there's a certain type of like transgressive humor that's hard necessarily to like defend. So if somebody is upset about Baby Yoda eating baby eggs, I respect how they feel, but it's kind of funny. It's just kind of funny. Yeah.
Sometimes something is so horribly wrong that the only natural response is bursting into laughter, and I feel like that's kind of what this elicits for me.
Curtis Franks points out the eggs were the end of their line, not necessarily the whole species. You are correct. It's not necessarily genocide. It's just like a blood feud.
If I think there's a valid criticism there, and by all means criticize all you want, but I think they could have shown the mother being aware of the fact that some of her eggs were going missing. That's probably the one point of that is probably correct to object to a bit, but I'm sorry, it's just like the timing of it and just.
And for him to be eating the babies of his future babysitter, it's just very funny in hindsight as well. So,
well, I will say this too. I think they made it kind of clear that those eggs were not fertilized when he was eating them. So she had laid the eggs; they had not been fertilized yet. So he's only eating half. Is it baby? That's why she had to get home to her husband so quickly so he could fertilize them eggs.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about.
One of the comments, it says eggs of Castamere.
Where is this? That okay, Tulkas, thank you.
I'm sorry. That was so funny. Well, I wasn't horrified. I thought it was funny, but I mean, it's somewhat natural. I mean, he's a carnivore. I don't know, maybe he's the natural predator to this species, or I don't know, but
I mean, I just know that when I was watching it, I was going like, "Oh no, don't eat those!" And yet, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, just the way it was.
I kid you not. Like Pat, I agree. I kind of had the similar reaction. Like the first time it happened, I was like, "Oh no, don't do that!" And then as he kept doing, I was like, "Oh God, stop him!" But then it was that last egg at the end of the episode where he looked back, and because I genuinely thought, like, after just gonna call her Frog Lady, she saves his life by shooting one of the spiders and stuff, and he sees her like holding the eggs. I thought it had kind of gotten through to him. Maybe don't do that, but then there he is, and it's just another egg for the road. And as that happened and went to credits, I was sitting there laughing my ass off because it was hilarious. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I mean, that's his thing through the whole series is the kid is always hungry. It's like, what do we feed him? Well, he's going to eat like half the frogs in the pond, or he's chasing some fish around, or like the mechanic in Tatooine, your friend there. She's like, I don't know, what does he eat? I'm sure something with bones in it. It's very much that he's an apex predator from whatever species that is.
Yeah. Somebody made a point, and I put it up on screen a moment ago, that like we eat eggs. They're not fertilized. I will say that like if you hatch a chicken, it's not going to grow into a sentient being. So like this is where I was starting to have problems. I'm like, that is a people group.
Yeah, those unfertilized eggs potentially would have grown into, had they been fertilized, would have been sentient beings. So, and we should respect that, and we should be respectful of people who are upset by this, because they might have an experience different than what we have when it comes to.
I'm not really upset, but
like,
I'm also like, stop eating the eggs, dude.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I think we were uniformly, please stop eating the eggs. I was so concerned about how there were so few eggs left, and then she's hatching more. I'm like, well, thank goodness she's hatching some more eggs, or she's putting them out there, and so they're collecting them, and then he's still going to get some more. It's like, no, get that kid up, and muzzle or something.
Right.
Okay. And it's honestly just the way they showed him, like just go.
Yep.
It's like he was just bobbing for apples. Like a kid at Halloween just bobbing for apples. Just, let me get some. This is great. This is a game. It's delicious.
But I have seen that, it talked about, and full credit to Force Center. I'm just going to steal their great ideas that they have about these episodes, but the fact that what we are shown over and over, especially this season, is that and this kind of leads up to whether or not he should be trained as a Jedi. If Baby Yoda sees something that he wants and he takes it.
Yeah.
And he starts to use the
No
Force
self-control at
to
all.
get what he wants. It's like, the same thing. He wants like the chips or cookies or whatever those
Or
blue
the little
things are.
doohickeys.
Yeah, and the kid won't, give him over, so he uses the Force and gets himself. So Baby Yoda hasn't really learned how to listen to the word no.
Uh-huh.
Right. Boundaries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's Grogu, John.
I'm not going to take this from you, Steven.
Can we compromise or something? Can we call him Baby Grogu? I don't know.
No, as soon as it's been one episode that we've known about the real name. I like the name, and I want to call him the name. I'm just getting used to it.
He's the child. Okay, he's just a child. Okay, he's just a
His
child.
name is Grogu Jaren.
Oh.
What?
Grogu Jaren.
I'm being lectured by the guy who doesn't even like the name.
At least I'm calling him by his name, like it or not.
All right, let's keep talking.
All right,
All right,
so at the risk of pissing off a black belt, I'm going to move on.
Emperor's egg slurp.
Oh, I will say this too. Ice spiders, big as hounds.
They're big. Those are big. There's at least
Bigger than hounds.
some big spiders. They were so nasty. And he's eating one. I was like, oh no, it sounds even worse because I understood him eating the little frog egg because it looked edible, but eating like a spider, I was like, what are you doing? You crazy.
He's hungry.
He was hungry.
And-
He was
He's hungry.
More predatory, more apex predator behavior.
Mhm.
And see, that's when he should learn, no, that's bad because the mother comes after him in that case.
right.
And the entire family. So my
It
criticisms
reminded
of
me
the
of-
show are few, but I do have a criticism from this episode. The spider chase scene went on too long. I
Steven
feel like
doesn't
they
care
could have
for
trimmed a
spiders.
couple of minutes out of that, maybe even I think 2 full minutes out of that, and it would have felt because they were
Or
running
just
from
cut
those
the
spiders.
spiders out completely, right, Steven?
Do what?
Or just cut the spiders out completely.
No,
right?
actually, I thought their design was cool, and I thought there was a lot of threat to them. But like, it's just them running from spiders for like 10 minutes.
It's not 10 minutes.
Okay, 9.5 minutes. You are correct, Jess. You can eat all the spiders you want, Baby Yoda. You can genocide spiders if you want.
Oh my God! So
I like frogs,
hypocritical.
hate spiders. So there you go.
So, how did you like the interactions between Mando and the X-wing fighters, the pilots? You got
I thought
that
it was
little
cool.
comeback.
To me, it was interesting because, well, they show us a side of the New Republic that is a little bit more flexible than what we see in the movies. That they are the good guys and the Empire is the bad guys. So he showed a little. They showed a little bit of flexible morality, and they kind of let Mando get away with whatever he was doing that deserved him to be in prison. I don't know. So that I think that was cool.
Well, it was the callback to the first season episode, the Prison Break.
Mhm.
So, what comes around, we saw the two TIE fighter, not the TIE fighters, the two X-wing fighter pilots there, in pursuit. And then, so he's out there. I mean, they know his ship was involved in some kind of way. Yeah, but also that he didn't personally kill any of, he kind of subverted their plans. So it kind of it got him in trouble and out of trouble at the same time, but put him on the New Republic's radar, so to speak.
From a story perspective, it was hard for me necessarily to accept that they would kind of like let him go. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed as Celia was saying that we don't have to view the Republic from Mando's perspective as necessarily like the good guys. That he,
Right.
rather than just
Yes.
the Empire being a problem, the New Republic does not necessarily have to be
Every
The solution. Yeah.
yes, I mean every big government really ends up being a problem for someone that doesn't
Yes.
benefit from their policies. So even though some people may think that this is the right way to do things, some people won't. This is why we have.
Well, it's the
Parties?
outer rim.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Mhm.
it's the outer rim. It's supposed to be like the edge of what is controllable space, even for the the pre-republic, the old republic, and then the follow up the empire, and then even now it's always been this area that was just a little bit beyond what can be truly controlled by the centralized, the center part of the rim. So it's just re-emphasizing that fact. It's like, hey, out here we kind of do our own thing, minimal interference. You can only enforce what you can enforce. You know what I'm saying? You can only enforce the laws you can actually enforce.
And and arresting Mando at that point would be a pain in the ass because he had to ride with one of them.
Right?
I mean, because his ship looks so bad that there's no guarantee it's going to get up. When they caught him earlier and he had like a broken tail light, they could have just like forced him to fly, to some Republic base or whatever. But it was just kind of problematic after they came by and saved him. But one thing I enjoyed about the episode, I like to make an observation that often we believe that the characters in this show have also seen all of the shows. Like the fact that Mando does not know anything about the Jedi. It's like, well, hasn't he seen Star Wars? Doesn't he know who Luke Skywalker is? Like, doesn't everyone know that? And in this, we had a flip where clearly those two X-Men pilots had seen last season of The Mandalorian and knew he was a good guy. And so they let him off the hook because they knew things that probably they wouldn't have known.
Stephen, I'm saving my comments on the music for some of the next episodes.
Okay, Anna, there's your answer.
So basically, just let him off with a warning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the two pilots is Dave Filoni, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not careful, we're going to end up with Dave Filoni with the starring role, and I don't think he wants that. And
I don't think he wants that at all.
We probably don't want that either.
Well, for this type of thing where he's just got to say a few lines in a cockpit shot, great. He's not having to carry an emotionally weighted scene,
Yeah,
Right.
And it's nice to see him out there, being a
part of me though, even though it would completely pull me out of the episode, just wants him to be like the lone New Republic fighter with a cowboy hat.
That would be great. The only wide-brimmed hat in Star Wars. Well, he'll take out Cad Bane and take his hat. I would be here for that. Side note, the voice of the Frog Lady was done by D. Bradley Baker.
Of course it was.
Of course it was. Who has done approximately 1 bajillion voices in animation over the years. You Avatar The Last Airbender fans will know him as the voice of Appa and Momo.
Oh, well, there you go.
And of course, he is the voice for all the clones in the animated Star Wars shows. Yeah, it's like I'm glad he factored into the Mandalorian and in some capacity, since he won't be portraying any of the clones that happen to show up in the show, because that'll be left to Tamora Morrison.
Right on.
I just like that we finally got some payoff for that prison episode. It was like first season, it was like kind of the oddball episode. It's like, wait a second, what's this all about? At least in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it introduced some cool characters. It was like its own little heist thing. But now it's like, oh, there you go. Now we're tying that into ongoing plot. So it was nice that they kind of picked up the thread there and tied it into the rest of the series.
Agree.
I mean, I always felt it was actually one of last season's strongest episodes, just because it felt like the most self-contained, and it had the most meat on its bones as far as making the episode's characters engaging, without having to rely on building them up over several episodes. And so I didn't necessarily need it to be tied back, but I'm glad it was. And I actually look forward to seeing those characters pop back up at some point.
That makes me think.
Right on, right on. So any other thoughts about episode 10, The Passenger?
I will just say that part of what really worked for me this season was the way all of these episodes tied together. And I loved that this episode started off with Mando continuing to, right away from the end of, the last episode. And then, the next episode picks up with Frog Lady and finishes off her story. And so all of these episodes felt actually like chapters of a book, and the season is actually telling one big story. Whereas last season, it was kind of like that, but I felt like each episode kind of felt like especially the really short ones felt like, little short, mini episodes, and it didn't completely all feel like a cohesive whole to me. But this season definitely is working wonderfully.
Yeah, and this season, go ahead, Nessie.
No, go ahead, Pat.
Okay, because this season has had a through line where he was trying to get Baby Yoda, or Grogu, delivered to a Jedi, and he had to find the covert and work his way through that. It makes it so that you do this kind of like linear progression throughout the series instead of last season where it was just kind of like it was more of like one-offs kind of put together until you had like a big story at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I like how that they're progressing from, through the planets, different planets. Each setting, each planet he's going to is a different environment. It's like we've gone from from Tatooine, which is sandy, dry desert world, and then they're going to this ice planet, in the next episode. And then the next episode after that, we've gone from like fire to ice, and then to the water world. So and then to like it's just the different scenes, the different planets. They're all have their own environment, and it doesn't look like cookie cutter or just copied and pasted. Each planet looks very, very believable.
Right. Well, and as per usual in Star Wars, each planet has one biome that dominates the entire planet.
Right.
But yeah, they are visiting some really interesting places this season, including, other parts of, like, we've been to Tatooine before, but we're seeing a part of it that we haven't exactly seen before. Those canyon-y type places are not something we've seen a lot of, unless you're zooming by in a pod racer,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just nice to see other areas of even familiar places. Like we're used to the spaceport, but then going out into the outback like that, where the miners live or what have you, that's a whole different vibe, whole different feel. It feels even cut off from Tatooine, Mos Eisley, which is cut off. So,
right on.
Yeah.
So anything else about Chapter 11 we want to make sure we get out? I'm sorry, Chapter 10.
Chapter 12. Yeah.
Chapter 10.
I'm ready to talk about Chapter 11 now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we're going to do our mid-roll because we've been going for an hour. Then we'll jump right into Chapter 11. Okay, so that being said, everyone who's here now, thanks for being here live. If you're watching this later, also thanks. You should try joining us live. It's a lot more fun. So please like the stream. Please subscribe if you haven't. We have nerdy conversations like this all the time. Specifically, next week, the nerdy conversation will be my 46th birthday party celebration. So come by, laugh and point, and tell me how old I'm getting. So no big topic. I'm just going to talk about whatever I want with my friends.
You're still so young.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Maybe we'll have an in-depth discussion of why you don't absolutely love Rick and Morty.
Okay, we'll do that.
Oh my God.
We sure come at me, bro. But then the week after that we're going to be getting back into our Expanse coverage. Hold on, I'm pulling up my my schedule right now. Where is my Google Doc? So next week is my birthday. Then I believe we're doing a discussion of Kamina Drummer character focus, and then like just a couple of days after that, season 5 of the Expanse drops, and so the next following Sunday we will be covering the first 3 episodes of season 5 of the Expanse. It's my favorite show right now, so I am super hyped to be getting back to that. Yeah, okay. So, Cecilia, what have you got coming up?
Okay, well, my podcast is right now in a bit of a hiatus, but I'm planning on to renew it, and this time I will be having some English-speaking guests as well as my Spanish-speaking guests, and well, I hope I could do that soon. It's just that with my new job, it's not that new anymore, but it's kind of difficult to handle a full-time job with my motherhood of toddlers that are being homeschooled right now because of the pandemic. Well, it's a little bit difficult for me, but I am planning on to continue. It's just that I lately haven't seen, well, I have seen a couple shows lately, but I wasn't able to watch anything like for a full month. So I'm like catching up so I can have something to talk about in my podcast.
Well, I look forward to you coming back. And you're going to do some English language stuff now too.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Cool,
will maybe be moving into this live format because it would be easier for me. I still need to try it out because I'm not good at live shows, but yeah.
Could have fooled me.
Curtis Franks asks, what's the name of this pod? It's Geekstrelia.
Yes, it's El Podcast de Geeksteria. The
To
Geeksteria
follow
podcast.
everyone
You can find it in YouTube. You can find it in Spotify or Apple Podcast or any other podcast provider. I talk about nerdy
Twitter,
stuff.
Instagram, and Spotify on there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you can find all of that.
Yes, it's in Spanish though. So if you don't speak Spanish, maybe you won't understand anything. But if you're curious, you're welcome to take a look or listen to it.
Right. So, Pat, I'm going to ask you what you've got coming up. I can't wait to hear what your answer is.
I got nothing coming up, man. I don't have a podcast. I don't do anything. What are you talking about?
Are you kidding me?
I just show up and sponge on people's shows. Now, when House of the Dragon comes back, when House of the Dragon airs on HBO, then I probably will be writing about that, and hopefully I'll be writing for Watchers of the Wall still. But until then, I'm just enjoying life, stuck at home.
I'll tell you what Pat's doing next. Pat, you have 113,000 tweets. I don't know if you can see that, but you'll be tweeting next, I'm sure.
Yes, I'll probably be tweeting. I'll tweet tomorrow. You can count on me to tweet something tomorrow.
Right on. And follow Pat on Twitter. She is a top tier follow. Way better than me. Way better than anybody else up here. I don't know. Cecilia's pretty good.
I do know that. I do know that I have to have the orcs watch Return of the Jedi. So I need to schedule that for the orcs to do that. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and they will live tweet it.
Right on, right on. I forgot to put the orcs Twitter down there in the description. I'll try to go back and do it later.
Yeah, the orcs live tweeting these things just gives me life.
Yeah. Okay, Nessie, what's coming up for you? You've got stuff on the schedule, don't you?
Oh yeah, lots of stuff coming up on the schedule. Believe it or not, after a long hiatus of what the heck is going on with me. Next, this week coming, December the 2nd, I'm watching a new series on my channel called Bleep the Patriarchy, and the first episode is going to be Veep the Patriarchy with my co-host. One of several things that multitasking things that she's doing. I don't know how she finds time for. Aemy Blackfyre. We're going to be doing some feminist analysis. We're going to be in this first episode. We're going to be celebrating a century of suffrage, of women's suffrage. So we're going to be talking about a lot about that and the first episode, and our lovely first ever female biracial Indian African American vice president. So we've got a lot of firsts in this one. And December 16th, now for something completely different. I'm going to have Dan, the voice of geek, coming on my channel, and we're going to be discussing Monty Python's The Holy Grail as a spoofy kind of continuation of the Arthurian content that I've been doing lately. I reached out to Dan. I'm like, hey, Dan, what do you know about King Arthur and, the Arthurian legends? He's like, I watched Monty Python. So it turned out as a joke. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. That is it's a great movie. We recently watched it in the Slack as a watch party. So it's not just it's a silly movie. It is a silly little movie, but it's got a lot to say. So join us on the
Monty Python. That's a good Arthurian movie. Yeah.
It is. It's canon.
Yeah.
It's canon.
No. It's good. It's actually it's solid. I mean, don't take it literally, but it's a good movie.
Okay.
A horror.
So John, what have you got coming up?
Well, next week, there's going to be, let me point the right direction. Somebody on this stream is going to be coming over to my channel. Cecilia is going to be guesting along with Dan, voice of Geekdom, and Carol Brown, and all three of them will be joining Aemy and me for a discussion of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, starting off our 3 weeks of nonstop Lord of the Rings discussion. And I want to let everybody know that we're moving our time for the next 3 weeks. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern instead of our usual time of 7, because we're going to have people in different time zones. So we want to make it easier for them. We're going to have a lot of fun. And Cecilia, I'm so happy you agreed to come on for that. We're going to have
I'm looking forward. I'm such a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. I actually have an episode about Lord of the Rings, but it's not about the movies. It's about the series that is going to be released in Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So we spoke a little bit about the Silmarillion, and my guest is another huge nerd, and he's from Argentina. It's one of my favorite episodes of my podcast. So if you guys can check it out, even though it's Spanish, be my guest. And I am more than happy to rewatch the Fellowship of the Ring for that zillion time again, just to be in your show.
Yeah, it'll be taxing for me to talk about Lord of the Rings because
great episode of your it was a great episode of your show with your guest Douglas.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Anybody who hasn't seen it yet, and not yesterday, because Aemy and I actually talked about the film Colette yesterday, but the week before, I had an interview with Doug Adams, who wrote the book, The Music of the Lord of the Rings films. And we talked all about Howard Shore's score for the trilogy. So, so please hop over to my channel and take a look at that if you haven't seen it. I had a fantastic time. We went for about 3 hours.
Yeah, I've seen it, and it was awesome. It really was a great interview. It was a lot of fun. Last things last, I got to make sure we get the Patreon shout outs in here. So much love to our patrons. If you want to become a patron, our Patreon link is down in the description. The perks are not that fantabulous. Everything is free for everyone always. But if you want to help, if you want to help me pay for my new computer that I'm about to get, feel free to become a patron. And you too can get a shout out, like our High Council members, including Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, Sir Maura Lee of Starfall, Sixto Sounds, aka JP the Axe Grinder, and of course, ridiculous Ed Tollett, our alpha patron. We love you, buddy. And the lords and ladies of the realm include Lady Leaf Underhill and our newest lady of the realm, Aemy Blackfyre, lover of poles. So thank you to all of our patrons. We love you guys. And I do want to plug our Slack group too. Always growing, always happy to add new people. It is a place where only kind-hearted non-assholes are allowed to join. But if you fit that description and you would like to give our little circle a try, we've got quite a few people that's where we do our socializing at. Anyway, yeah. So if you want to join our Slack group, you need to send me an email at we3dragons@gmail.com. 3 spelled out. we3dragons@gmail.com. Okay. So, Mandalorian, Season 2, Chapter 11, The Heiress. So this has, to me, one of the funniest...
Pop something up real quick, because I did have a time change for my December 16th live stream, so it'll be at 5 p.m. Euro-friendly. Thank you. Continue.
Okay, great. Good to know, though. This has one of the funniest moments in any episode up to this point, when he's trying to land and he's hovering right above the landing pad and the engine cuts out and it just hard flops over into the water. Like I think I choked on my coffee when I watched that.
I did. I literally spit my coffee. It was hilarious. Like, we finally made it. Oh, and he doesn't stick the landing. So,
boy, does he not stick the landing. That's like
it's like we made it here alive, and that's about all we can say.
It is a real miracle those eggs made their way to their father.
Yes.
Oh man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the Mon Calamari just being there, just like.
in that sweater, that great sweater he had.
That fisherman sweater. It's funny. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably my favorite planet so far to date.
And it was a nice, touching moment when Frog Lady and Frog Husband got together. I mean, it was because I was kind of. I mean, after watching their children being eaten by my favorite little critter, I was invested in their future survival. So it was nice they got together.
Oh, they made it.
Planet of Trask, which I thought was, or I guess it's the moon of Trask. So on Camino, we've seen these vast oceans before, but they were backdrop. They were not a significant element of the story. Like, there were oceans out there, but the Jedi never got onto the ocean. it was just wet planet everywhere. Whereas here, like, not only do they ride like a fishing trawler out there, but even the landing platform, it falls in the water, and you see the giant legged crane that's going to be used to haul it out of the water. Like, they really put some thought into what a full water planet might look like, and it looks like oh gosh,
New
I can't think of the
England.
name of the place, but where the
It
pirates
looks
lived.
like New
Tortuga.
England to me.
It looked. I thought it was Space Tortuga. That's what it looked like to me.
I just
Yeah.
pictured the calamari like the Gordon's fisherman there with the little, just standing there, just thoroughly disgusted at this outworlder who can't navigate on his planet. And with the chowder and stuff in the bar, it just had like a New England fishing village theme to me. Foggy coming in out of the damp to get a hot bowl of chowder. That was just my take.
And then it all builds up to this nice introduction of the other Mandalorians, who are a different type of Mandalorians who are not afraid to show their faces, and that's good information for us, that it contradicts something that that had been established early on. And I am a big fan of Mando not taking off his helmet. I mean, not that it hamstrings him as an actor, but I just love that helmet, and I love how it's contoured, and I love the physicality of Pedro Pascal and how he moves and how he has to communicate.
Yeah, well, I love Pedro Pascal's face, so.
I know. I respect that.
Yeah, I understand your point, and I agree with you totally. But on the non-Star Wars canon side, I really like Pedro Pascal's face, and I would like to see it more often in this series. But yeah.
Yeah, I hope it's working up to him not wearing the helmet, at least, all the time. As soon as he realizes, as soon as he accepts that, yes, you were indeed raised in a cult and you don't have to do this. So.
He was that many years old when he discovered he was raised by cultists.
Yeah.
Grogu kind of was in a way too. He was brought up in a cult-like atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a lot in common.
Yeah, that fits up the connection between them. They
were brought in by these cult-like organizations. They were raised a certain way to a certain code. Yeah, they got a lot of backstory together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was happy to get this because obviously, I had a lot of concerns last year about how this was fitting in canon, if all the Mandalorians were actually not supposed to take their helmet off and all that stuff about Mandalorian isn't a race, it's a creed. Well, no, it's a race. We've established that. So I really liked getting the Mandalorian sort of culture that I was familiar with from Clone Wars and Rebels, and seeing them just be like, well, no, that's not the way things actually work. It was nice to get that, but I do think that this was a nice way, because I get that all the Mandalorian is a creed, and and things of that nature are callbacks to, as I understand it, the old expanded universe. And I think that Jon Favreau is a big fan of that stuff. So I think this was kind of a way of working in both the old and the new. And this episode was kind of about laying it out, as to how that could be. And I think it was very well done. And I just jumped out of my seat when I saw the Mandalorians, and especially Bo-Katan and the other female Mandalorian in those costumes that I remembered from Clone Wars.
Be careful what you say, John. Don't be sexist.
What?
No, I'm making a really bad joke. There was a lot of uproar about the Mandalorian armor from some of the dumber portions of the fandom. You know, the boobs on the armor are sexist, and I'm like, where are you going to put those? You know, where are you going to put those things?
And plus, I'm not going to say much of that because
I don't know, but apparently they want them to be
boobs exist. Boobs exist even in space.
Yes,
they still exist.
As
You gotta have somewhere to put them.
As a man, I probably shouldn't say much. I'll just say that they are being true to the designs of the armor in Clone Wars and Rebels. So I'm just, that's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, and I watched Shadiversity. If you don't know Shadiversity, fantastic channel. The man knows his weapons and armor, and he has an entire series about, you know, women's armor. And yeah, it's not sexist. You got to put those things somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked a lot of
unless you put a rule to female Mandalorians to be small-sized boobs. But no, those things, even though they are small or big, they need room. And if they are crushed, it hurts.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and anyway, go watch Shad's videos on those if you want to know more. They're very good. I quite enjoyed this episode. This is my favorite episode, maybe of the series so far, is Chapter 11.
I liked all of the Lovecraftian type elements that they were able to bring into this episode, you know, with the like the two different species that are inhabiting the planet. One kind of has like a Cthulhu-esque type squiddly face, and then you have like the Mon Calamari, excuse me, that have more like of a deep ones type face features. And then they have this big giant squid monster that they're out, you know, they've got to rescue the baby Yoda from. It's just really not that I'm a big fan of Lovecraft because he's garbage, but some of the themes that he brings in with that kind of spookiness, that fog, the little fishing village in New England, and they've got these deep ones and the the squid. It's just like a little whiff of Lovecraft brought in there. I don't know if anybody else picked that up or not.
I did.
Yeah.
Anytime I see a tentacle, I think Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, Grogu finds them all tasty. You know, to him, it's like a giant hunting ground, probably. You know, and then having I thought it was the weirdest thing, having the little fill up, you know, when you're getting your chowder, you just pull the hose down and they just, like they're filling up your gas tank or something. Here, have some gruel, have some fish. I don't know.
Yeah.
And was the little baby octopus all in the hose too? Did it kind of plop out in
It has
there?
to have. It couldn't come from anywhere else.
So they're just, I guess they're live.
So I'm getting that Nessie wants to vacation in space New England.
It's probably very, pleasant, the climate there. I don't like it really, really hot.
That's a good point, because you also brought up, like the whole New England fishing village, and that directly translates into the shadow over whatever the hell. Innsmouth, yeah. So that does all kind of play in.
Yeah, it's always this little sleepy village that harbors a terrible secret.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot about this episode. So excuse me if I just go off for a second. There were a lot of things about this episode that really, really got me. The fact that we did, and it's already been mentioned, the fact that we have Mandalorians that will take off their helmet and be like, this is our way.
Mm-hmm.
You say this is the way. Well, no, this is the way. And then the fact that she refers to him as a child of the watch. And that, my brain immediately started going 90-0 when I heard that. because she's clearly referring to the Death Watch. And we even have, I can't remember the character's name from season 1, but there was a Mandalorian heavy who was Clan Vizsla.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I didn't, in general, the Mandalorians are kind of portrayed as this monolith, you know. Yes, there's two sides in a civil war during the Clone Wars, but when you see a Mando in armor, they're kind of monolithic. They're not divided into all these different groups. So I thought it was just really cool the way they added depth to the lore so easily just by having Mandalorians remove their helmets and go, oh, he's one of those. But then to connect it to the larger story that the Mandalorian's in already because of the inclusion of Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan asking questions about the Darksaber. This is the episode that got my goosebumps going, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, this show is about to like have a really big, long arc type story, which is what I loved. What I loved about Game of Thrones. It was one big story. It wasn't just a bunch of little vignettes. So chapter 11 is the one that really got me. It's the most excited I've been about this show since I watched episode 1 way back.
And I like that the title of the episode is The Heiress. You know, we're introduced. We see Bo-Katan. She's wanting to take back her planet. You know, free Mandalore. And also, that's like on the macro scale. And then, like on the micro scale, you see the little fish mama. Fish mama, who's the last of her line. She manages to have one tiny little fish baby. You know, so that's kind of like her heiress, too. You know, so on the micro and on the macro, I thought that was a good tie-in.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the episode because it helped lay the groundwork for something, because we discover that our Mando was like raised kind of in a sheltered way. It justifies exposition going forward. That he's not supposed to know like what's going on, and it's okay. It's okay that he doesn't know about Order 66 wiping out the Jedi. Right? I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Just it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Right, because the more then as he learns things, we're being fed the same information.
Right.
And also, there's an opportunity if, in case Grogu chooses the Mandalore way instead of the Jedi way, it's a great opportunity for Mando to understand more his culture in depth in a way that he hasn't through Grogu.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the serious student must teach, and so for him to teach Grogu the Mandalorian way, he would actually learn all about the real way.
Yes.
Yes. And this just sets up, future plot lines for Mandalore and what we're, I hope. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping we'll see it. So.
As for what I loved about the episode, let me just say it point blank. There she is.
Wow.
Man, she looks just like her too.
Yeah, it's probably, and I think they probably cheated with the age a little bit, because I think Bo-Katan should be perhaps a little bit older, but you got Katie Sackhoff to play the role. You want her in her prime.
Well, maybe she has a very good skincare routine.
Yeah, everybody has a better skincare routine than poor Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I mean, living in the desert for 20 years, probably not good for your skin. It wouldn't be good for mine.
But I was so seriously, and I would have liked the episode to be longer. I'll say that, but the episode really excited me just because of what it set up for. Not just this season, but the series. I know I've heard a lot of people say they want the Mandalorian to remain kind of this off in this corner of the galaxy Star Wars show that isn't tied into some of the bigger stuff. But it's like when they announced a show called The Mandalorian, I wanted it to tie into the larger fight for Mandalore and, and connect to Bo-Katan, and call back to like Satine and all that stuff from Clone Wars, and maybe bring in at some point Sabine Wren from Rebels. And if it's a show about a Mandalorian, I want I wanted to have a lot of that Mandalorian story content that we've gotten from the animated shows, and I want to bring that to the forefront. So for me, this is a story about how our Mando, starts off doing his own thing in the, in his small corner of the galaxy, and by the end of the show becomes embroiled in these great big conflicts. They talk about seating a new Mandalore on the throne, and and the gears started turning in my head by the end of the series. Is that Din Djarin? Maybe not, but I want the story to make those moves towards being,
It's not going to be Din Djarin. It's going to be Grogu.
But I do want to see the show move in that direction story wise, and so I'm very excited to see that.
Right on. So, anything else to say about this episode? One thing that does need to be said: beautifully directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Fantastic episode. She directed a couple of them in season 1, and I was like, these are good. This is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian so far. And Bryce Dallas Howard, hats off to you. I mean, I'm a big fan of your dad, but like, you're becoming one of my favorite filmmakers in your own right. I know you're watching. You don't have to answer. But yeah, fantastic job she did. We ready to move on to episode 12?
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Entitled The Siege.
Siege. Very ominous.
Which, can I just say, I love that Carl Weathers made this.
Yeah,
and I'm ripping this off. I'm ripping this off from somebody else too, but he made it like an '80s action movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It had like the chase scene where Cara Dune is driving the troop transporter. It had so much of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade vibes, where they're in the tank and they're just going through and they're like, scraping up against the walls and trying to, get rid of their chase in this little box canyon. So it had a lot of vibes for me like that of the 80s, adventure movies, of course, thanks, little other Spielberg project that was going on back then. So, little Spielberg project, but yeah. So it was, like you said, it was nice to see that kind of action going on.
And it was nice also. It was kind of refreshing to see familiar faces.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And also, because a chunk of the episode did not have Mando in it, it's just nice for the other characters to be able to do something. And I'm happy to watch our Mando through everything, but it's nice to see Carl Weathers being able to play Grief Karga and doing a lot of crazy things. So
yeah. Grief Karga is kind of growing on me as a character. I kind of like his vibe, his pseudo swagger, like, it's like, hey, we're out here. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Or cachet.
What makes Carl Weathers' performance for me really work is because he does like to present himself as this, sort of, this figure with authority. We saw a lot of that in season 1, where, he talks as, because he's, as we hear him described at the end of season 1 as disgraced former magistrate Grief
Right.
Karga. And so he, styles himself as sort of a magistrate. But then there's those moments where, you get those cracks with him where when he's up, his back is up against the wall, and he just has these really charming qualities. My favorite bits, in season 1 were, in that final battle when he's just, chugging back drinks during the fight. He's like, I'm going down drunk.
Yeah.
I think maybe the thing that made Grief stand out so much this episode is that he was directed by Grief Karga. The fact that Carl Weathers kind of got to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. And this is how he sees his character.
Mm-hmm. So he got to put every piece of swagger into it that he thought was appropriate. And I agree. I loved Grief Karga in this episode,
He needs a cape. He needs a flashy cape, little.
Needs to raid Lando's closet.
I think he could very easily.
I was just thinking about when I was rewatching the episode today, and the fact that he goes into this, this tense situation, this, what becomes a fight scene, and he's wearing like his, coat and stuff. It's like, wouldn't it be easier to maneuver around if you took that thing off? But he's got to remain stylish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Robbie Meeson, good point. You're from Alderaan. Did you lose everyone? Did you lose anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, as she says, I lost everyone.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you lost everyone. You lost, you can't even.
Well, was doing an errand in another planet, maybe.
That's true.
But yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Mhm.
It just seemed like the wrong way to phrase that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It felt odd, yes.
It was a good
but
episode.
the
Good.
more appropriate question might be: did anybody actually make it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was a solid episode though for providing information. In that short burst when they come in, they find the cloning chamber or whatever was going on, the medical facility.
Right. Yeah.
And and we know that they were taking blood from Grogu to harvest the M count and do something with that, and how it was kind of disastrous. So that was all good. It's good for us to know moving forward, what they wanted with Baby Yoda.
And I thought it was genius because I went into this episode actually expecting it to be very, sort of standalone-ish, but in fact,
Sure.
it's one of the more important episodes of the season because
Yes.
it ties into the main
Revealing.
story.
Mhm.
Yeah. And especially, questioning what are they trying to do with that blood? Those bodies in the tubes looked an awful lot like Snoke prototypes.
Or
Mhm.
Death Troopers? I thought.
Some kind of clone, some kind of
Yeah, they gave me a
super
clone
soldier.
vibe. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it, of course, ties to what is revealed in the next episode about Baby Yoda.
Yeah, nothing good can come out of those tanks.
Mhm.
Right.
Nothing good is going to come out
Yeah,
of
they're
those.
not going to come out and go do children's parties. That's for sure.
No. And the Empire is desperate now.
Mhm.
They're willing to push any and every boundary they can. So,
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I appreciated about it was how much they reflected it back on season 1. You've got
Yeah.
Mithril. I have a hard time not calling that character Mithril now, but
Right.
Mithril, the blue guy, and
yeah.
how hilarious when he first sees Mando, that cloud that comes out of his neck.
Yeah.
We all know what that means, but the guy from the opening who got frozen and was trying to make it home for Life Day. But
Yeah,
we got the Dr. Pershing.
Yeah.
Dr. Pershing was there.
Yeah, Pershing.
It was almost like rounding up a whole bunch of great characters from season 1 to bring them back for this. but as you say, it connects to the larger story because we see that it's a facility where Grogu was probably being processed before, and yeah, the Death Troopers are coming, and who knows what's actually going on there.
Nothing good.
Yeah. Oh, I see. People are talking about midichlorians in the chat. M count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to say the word out loud. I don't know. It's been long enough, y'all. We can just accept that midichlorians are a thing.
I mean, speaking as a kid who, I was still a young teenager when episode 1 came out, so I never really thought there was anything particularly wrong with it, but your mileage will vary.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see them incorporate that into, because I'm glad to see a lot of prequel era stuff, shown as vitally important to the show, because it would be easy enough for them to reflect, sort of keep this anchored in the original trilogy for those old school fans, but they've shown that they want to bring in every corner of Star Wars is sort of to bear into this content, which is, we get a look at something's going on with what they're using Baby Yoda's blood for, and that's setting up things that'll come in the sequel trilogy as well. So they're not afraid to just say all Star Wars is Star Wars, and we're going to pull from it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, we find out too at the end that Moff Gideon has spies amongst Greef Karga's people there, because of the transponder, that was planted. I mean, kind of like planting the transponder on the Millennium Falcon when they kind of let him go. So, yeah, it's kind of another callback there, but yeah, that's going to have to pay off at some point, maybe the next episode or 3 down the road, but they're tracking him. They've got a way. They always know where he's going to be now. So, waiting for a showdown.
The one thing I want to make sure I mention before moving forward, because it's easy to pass over, but it's going to connect later, is that there is a tracking beacon on the Razor Crest after the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Moff Gideon has put a tracking beacon on Din's ship, and I don't know what that's going to mean in the long run. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, they're gonna come into conflict. I mean, they're gonna find them. Mm-hmm. How do they get away? Who knows? Or do they?
Yeah, it'd be a shame if they interrupt, Mando and Baby Yoda or Grogu. God, and I'm having more trouble than anybody else. Damn it! Why? But if they reach that Jedi temple, and that's when the Empire shows up, that would be bad timing.
That would be a great. If you were going to say strike back, that would be a great time to do it.
Yeah, that would suck.
Can we just talk about Ahsoka? Like, full stop now.
Well,
I was going to say anything else for chapter 12.
Well,
okay, great. Chapter 13.
Chapter 13.
So if they follow the transponder trail to the next planet where Ahsoka's hanging out at.
Where Bo-Katan told him to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where Bo-Katan told him to go. Yeah. Yeah.
So I really loved the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It pretty much always opens with the Mandalorian, or like the Mandalorian's maybe villain of the week sometimes.
Yeah.
But this time it was his co-star for the episode, and God, her physicality and the way that they're using the fog to their advantage to obscure what you can see, just brilliant. I loved the entire opening.
It was
It literally looked like Ahsoka Tano, plucked from animation and transformed into a live action being. Obviously, as I said before, it's going to take some getting used to with a different actress portraying her as far as the voice and all that. But just seeing her appear on screen, I was just chills down my spine. It was so perfectly done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even for people who didn't see Clone Wars and Rebels, I mean, I am one of those,
Okay.
and I still loved her performance, and I still love that it was very visually accurate to the animated character.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I feel from what I've heard, that is also accurate to the character itself. I mean, the way that it's written, and that is something that I appreciate very much. Seeing those elements from the animated series come into the into live action performances.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
Mm-hmm. When Ahsoka comes on the scene, it seems like that you've entered into the fantasy type realm that Star Wars also embraces, along with the science, the sort of pseudo science fiction, what have you. But you're in the fantasy realm. The fog. She's coming out of the woods. She's hidden. Now you see her. Now you don't. It's very mystical and magical. And even before you see her face, that this person's a Jedi. They're using all of the tricks and the talent. Mm-hmm. So you've just entered into that world immediately before you even see her face.
All the magic tricks are there.
the technique where she would turn off her lightsabers and turn visible, and then turn them on before she would attack. I mean, throughout the movie, that episode had such a samurai genre type of deal, particularly the fight on the bridge. So this opening is like a old ninja type movie. I mean, it was such a good episode for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole now you see me, now you don't.
Yeah.
Love
I was
that.
about to say that. Yes.
Yeah, and I've heard more than once over the past couple of days that this whole episode is basically like an homage to Kurosawa films, and and definitely trading in that genre. And what's interesting, even if you come to this without prior knowledge of the character, this actually works extremely well just in terms of the series itself, because you've sort of built up, hearing about Jedi throughout the series, and this is the first time in this show that you get to see, an actual Jedi, and just this introduction, with her taking down all these mercenaries and with her two lightsaber blades, and it's so well done. It's
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I've been waiting the whole series for, is this moment.
Ever since they announced that Ahsoka was going to be in the second season, I was looking forward to this episode. And another thing that I liked about this episode is the whole Asian vibe with the village, and how it kind of reminds me a little bit to those action movies, Asian action movies, martial arts a little bit, especially with the fight with Ahsoka and I don't remember the name, but yes, I like that very much, and I love to see a material that is resistant to Jedi's blades.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like Star Wars, but I'm not very. I don't have a deep knowledge about the whole universe, so this was good to see for me, because it was kind of a first time for me.
John, get her out of here! Get her out of here, John. You don't have a deep knowledge. We got to cut you. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, yeah, that was one of my favorite things from this episode. and visually it was very appealing. I mean, I loved the way that they portray a very polluted or destroyed world, and in the moment that they defeat this leader, the sky is a little bit clearer, and people is shows a little bit more color in their wardrobes, and I like that. And also I loved, obviously, the chemistry between Grogu, Ahsoka, and Mando. I feel that this is not going to be the last time that we see Ahsoka for this reason, because they were like, I felt like Ahsoka is going to become someone very important in Grogu's life. The way that Mando is important to him. I kind of felt like mom dad vibes there.
Yeah, I hope so. Kind of. Like, it's the Mandalorian.
Kind of.
I really hope that it would focus on Mandalorians in general. But like, if you could figure out a way to make Ahsoka Tano fit with that, I would be all for it. I really would.
I think because of Ahsoka's close ties with Mandalore and with Bo-Katan especially, which I keep reminding myself that even you and Nessie haven't seen
I'm not caught
the
up.
finale of Clone Wars yet. But they have very close relationships and they've gone through a lot. So I think if Bo-Katan figures big in the future of the Mandalorian, so too could Ahsoka.
I feel that way too, John, because some of the themes that you see in these other episodes are different people or enemies coming together to, work together for a common goal. So if that is, the Jedi and the Mandalore, ancient enemies or what have you, but the Empire and the war and everything has changed so much that, the enemy of my enemy can be my friend. Mm-hmm. So, and there's not like there's a lot of Jedi running around,
Yeah, and actually, this is jumping straight to the end of the episode, but I definitely felt like, especially with the look and the sort of nod that is shared between Grogu and Ahsoka at the end when Mando is getting back on the ship, I feel like, she's not lying, going to the temple will provide Grogu with a chance to choose for himself, but there's kind of an acknowledgement between her and Grogu that this is really just to avoid separating the two of them, and that where this road ultimately may lead to is just the two of them sticking together for good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hate it.
So one other thing that must be mentioned, at least by me, I have to make sure that I say this, for all the love and praise that we're heaping on seeing Ahsoka Tano, there was a moment where I went, Corporal Hicks!
Yes. Oh my God. Michael Biehn. Oh my God. To see him. Oh my God. Oh yes.
Kyle Reese, if you prefer, but Reese. I mean, he's getting up there in years. He's not quite the baby face he used to be, but I was still just, because as somebody who grew up in the 80s and watched a lot of the movies that he was in as a, Terminator and Aliens and it was a real treat for me to see Michael Biehn in there. That's all I got to say.
See, last season people kind of complained that Ming-Na Wen showed up and then she was kind of killed off, and they were angry that this great star was given such little to do. But I kind of feel that if I was in Hollywood, I would want to be in a Star Wars, and I wouldn't mind being killed off in the episode I was in. So to see Titus Welliver in the Heiress episode, great. I mean, I love it when everybody wants to be in one of these type of shows. Just in some minor role.
And there's also a type of thing where sometimes there's probably two schools of thought with this. Sometimes you bring in a big name for a character who maybe doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but it also lends gravity to that character. And some people might say, no, it just pulls me out of it if I recognize the face. But I do think that by having someone like Michael Biehn in this role, it sort of does bring a weight to this character. You're kind of perhaps slightly more intrigued than if it was somebody that you just didn't recognize.
Sure.
The actor has a legacy, and I actually, even though, I would have liked to maybe see a bit more with him, but there's just that great moment where he has the standoff with Mando, and he gets that great line, you and I are a lot alike, both willing to die for the right cause, which this isn't. Which, in the moment you could, think that, that's sort of a moment of honesty, but of course it's, just a ploy to try to distract Mando. But still, even things like that make me kind of think, I want to know more about that guy. What was his sort of backstory? What led him to this place? Because, we hear he's ex-military. What side did he fight on? In the Clone Wars, was he part of the Republic? It would have been interesting to see, and who knows, maybe we might get something for that character down the line in some other medium.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I'll say this too, like, people say, oh, he's such a great actor, why didn't we get more time? The writing process for what's going to happen to a character happens long before the casting process does. So this character was written, he was going to die, and then they put Michael Biehn in the part. That's what it is. You don't then make him not die because you got a good actor to play him. You just hope for a really great death scene on take one, and
Yeah, I mean, he knew going in that he was going to die.
Yeah, that's what the character was written for.
Yeah.
So I'm never one of those people like, you're wasting this big time actor. No, this is the character that was written. You got a big time actor for him? Great. You got a nobody to play him? Also great. People of all kinds need work.
I mean, I always say, like, if you think an actor has been given too little screen time, people should watch, a film that I actually did a review for on my channel. Yes, I'm plugging, which was Kenneth Branagh's version of Hamlet, where he hired like every famous actor under the sun. And Richard Attenborough comes on to the stage as the English ambassador for like one line at the end of the movie, and he kills it. But that's all he has to do. So sometimes you do just bring these actors in for the gravity and weight that they can bring to a part.
Yeah.
Right on. Any other points to make about Chapter 13?
Well, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, just the scenes with Grogu and Ahsoka when, they're speaking but not speaking, and just the kind of looks, because we haven't really talked about the interactions between the three of those characters. I love it when his name is, when she just says matter-of-factly Grogu, and then he says the name, and Grogu looks like he makes that little noise, and he's like, Daddy's calling me by my name.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you would have guessed it.
As much as I didn't like hearing Grogu the first time, the reaction was perfect. And it melted my heart, and I'm like, I'm eventually going to get over this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite scenes from this episode was one of the final scenes, the one where Mando wakes up Grogu, and he's like still a little bit drowsy, and then he carries him and he sits with him and kind of has a moment with him without words. Just that was so beautiful, and considering that it's a character that doesn't show you his face, it was a great way to express all those feelings without the traditional resources for an actor.
Right.
And I also love the when Ahsoka is, testing Grogu and the interactions between him and Mando is like, you want this?
Yeah.
It's like, go on, kid, take it.
Yeah. Like, he was very interested in the rock. He's like, it's a rock. Oh, but this shiny little orb thing that I like to play with. Yeah. So it's just saying how much he knows him. They've gotten this bond, this relationship. He knows his little likes and dislikes. It's just the father. It's just their bonding. They're just getting closer. And, you can't separate those two.
And I actually found it really interesting that they decided to play Ahsoka as being very in keeping with the old Jedi Order of he is too he has too much he's too attached. He is feeling angry. Don't train him. That kind of restrictiveness is what the Jedi Order traded in, and so I'm not even convinced that she's necessarily making the right call there. It might be more related to her internal fear. She's seen, her master go down the wrong path, and she's afraid of not being able to train someone correctly to prevent that. But yeah.
I think that they just need therapy.
And Anakin had some of the greatest mentors, that the Jedi Order had at the offer at the time, and they could not overcome that attachment, and they led him down the path. So I'm sure Ahsoka's like not even a full, she's a Padawan. She never really completed, so she has even less probably resources or whatever. She doesn't think she could do it. If these great and wise masters could not, overcome that, then how could she? So, she's got a valid point, and she saw what it happened, what it did to her master.
Yeah,
so.
she does, yes. But I want to say something very important. If Jedi with negative feelings are introduced to therapy, another thing would be
I agree. I agree.
The people has feelings. They have to acknowledge those feelings. No feeling is negative unless you do something bad with those.
Yeah.
So if these Jedi are subject to these therapy sessions where they can properly process and acknowledge those negative feelings, we wouldn't have a dark side.
No, I agree with you. I think the Jedi really, they suck, and they really set themselves up to fail by deploying a lot of shame.
Yes,
to their people.
Yes,
it's almost like toxic masculinity is a bad thing.
Toxic masculinity and toxic optimism also as well. It's like those people that you don't be sad. Well,
right.
but I'm sad. Don't be sad.
You have to think. Just think positive thoughts. Just think your way out of it.
Yes, and that's not something positive. You can deny that you have a problem. So,
by the way, I saw a picture online where somebody had inserted Grogu into that training scene when Yoda is training the younglings and attacking the clones. And like, that is one special edition change I should get behind, because that would be just adorable to see.
That would be so perfect.
But I do want to really quick say, actually, you know what? Sorry, Nessie, you were about to say something. I'm going to launch into a whole thing with the music because I completely forgot to do that, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, we got not only that, we got his little backstory about how he survived the purge of the younglings. And I know how sad and heartbroken I was, when Anakin showed up and it just slaughtered all of those innocent babes, and to know that at least one survived, hidden away. How he got hidden away? How did he get off Coruscant? These are questions I have. Who saved him? These are. I can't wait for these things to be revealed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely want to know who it was that rescued him from that. And
Any theories? You have?
I have no idea. Like,
well, we know it wasn't any of the council because they're out.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was home. Maybe it was the librarian. Ooh, I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been making people wait about the music. There's some very specific things I want to highlight. Mm-hmm. I freaking loved the theme they introduced for Bo-Katan and her Mandalorian. It's not even like a full theme. It's sort of like just the type of instrumentation they're using. Dun, 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 dun. It's this very aggressive kind of pulsing music, and like, aside from just wanting the characters back, I want that music developed and see where that goes. And it's great because I'm not even sure if they probably did, but I don't recall specific themes for Clan Vizsla in Clone Wars. But this immediately stood out to me. So it's nice for them to get their own music, and I'd like to see how that evolves. And if it combines with Mando's thematic material as those characters continue to intersect. And also, I have to talk about the music as well in the Ahsoka episode, because they brought back her theme from Clone Wars, which I was so excited about, because you might think that the composer might be tempted to craft his own theme, but I'm sure Dave Filoni probably said, use this music. Fans know her theme, and fans want that, and it's used periodically throughout the episode, and then it really gets this moment to soar at the end as she's walking away, and it was just great because that's wonderful connective tissue for people who care about that stuff. And are you shaking your head at me, Stephen?
No, I'm shaking my head at the cat. Okay. I promise.
And there's even also when the three of them are around the campfire and she mentions Yoda for a moment, you can hear his theme come through too. So there was a John Williams homage in that moment as well. And I heard a joke, is some people saying, well, she mentioned Yoda, but she neglected to mention Yaddle, the character from episode 1 who's on the Jedi Council. And I think somebody said, like, it would have been funny if they just introduced this off the beat theme for Yaddle that was like in complete contrast to anything else they did, like a little beat. Boom, 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 boom.
Harmony to a Yoda theme.
But yeah, it's some great callbacks musically in these episodes. And honestly, just at the start of the season as well, it was sort of a joy to just bring back Mando's main themes that were established in season 1, and because it sort of brings you back into that world. I think that they did a great job with the music this season, and we haven't even gotten to the final episodes yet. So you just know there's going to be some really creative stuff done there. So, and I hope I get my wish that I get more material for Bo-Katan and those Mandalorians, because I really, really want them to show up again at the end of the season.
Boo.
Yeah, Amy, I'm less convinced of that now that we have a name for him. I wasn't like completely dismissing that theory, because they have introduced the element of time travel before in Star Wars with the I think it's called the world between worlds, or something to that effect. And so it would have been possible, but I don't think that's the direction they're going in.
Right. Well, I really don't think so either.
Right.
I think that's a pretty high-minded approach for a an episodic Western.
No, I like
I don't
that.
know, Stephen. I
mean,
I see
anything
this-
is possible, but like John said, you would have seen something before, like I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Anything is
Uh-huh.
possible, but that's not possible.
Mhm.
Yes, but also, Stephen, you have not seen the Rebels episodes where that concept is introduced.
Okay, you are right.
Mhm.
You're right. I have not seen that. I think it's a myth. I will say this. One thing so there are 8 episodes this season, and 6 of them are written by Jon Favreau. And this is one of the 2 that are not. This is written and directed by Filoni. And but what better person to handle bringing Ahsoka to the live action screen than Filoni?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
the guy
honestly, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Right.
He is, along with Ashley Eckstein, he's the custodian of that character. And so, I think I would have been disappointed if someone else was directing Aemy.
Secret Targaryen.
We're having fun. We're having fun.
You guys have to keep typing all this ridiculous stuff in the chat, and I'm like trying to make points about the canon and all that, and I just hear chuckling in the background.
we have funny people. But yes, Aemy, your YouTube career is over now. Nobody wants you. That's a gift.
Oh.
Yeah. I've decided it was the librarian that saved Grogu. The
Yes.
librarian in the library with the holocube. Yeah. Yep. Just whacked somebody.
Holocron, Nessie, holocron.
Yeah.
The holocron.
Not clue reference, okay? Knocked him in the head, shoved him in an air shaft, and away he went.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's canon, and that's the hill I'm going to die on.
All right.
I do want to say, elaborating on something that I said in our Slack last night, which is, even if, this is like the third time I've said it, it's going to take some getting used to the character being in somebody's hands other than Ashley Eckstein. But one thing that was immediate was just how freaking awesome it is to see Ahsoka living and breathing in live action. And how that even further connects her into the Star Wars films. And so that, we had the final season of Clone Wars, which ties her story very directly into the events of Revenge of the Sith. But this even more so allows me to sort of picture her just off screen in that film. And and it's just great to see all these years of loving that character and seeing that her legacy is now being fully carried forward into the live action realm. It's very rewarding as a fan.
Yeah. Okay. Now, anything else left to say? No?
Nope.
Have we covered 5 episodes of The Mandalorian sufficiently?
We did it.
We got through all 5.
Good job, team.
Yay!
I'm proud of you. Okay, well, that having been said, I think we'll just move on to our end game for the week, in which I will tell you, if you haven't hit the like button or subscribed yet, do those things, please. I appreciate them very much. And Pat, you don't really have a podcast or a SoundCloud or whatever, so
I'm a civilian.
Which means he might have plenty of time to guest on another channel.
Right.
Lots of time on your hands there.
But I would like to say, Pat, thank you for joining us. You are a fantastic guest. I love your insights.
I was delighted to be here, and you can, anybody who wants to talk to me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Patman23.
Link in the description.
I'm usually very nice to everyone. So
that's probably why I keep asking you to come back and join us. Cecilia, you do have un podcast.
I do. If you are Spanish speaking or are interested in listening some Spanish or maybe unrust your Spanish, you are welcome to listen to my podcast. It's called El Podcast de Geeksterilia. I mean, Geeksterilia's podcast. That's literally the translation for it. I talk about a whole lot of topics, mainly sci-fi fantasy, but I also some general pop culture series and movies and stuff like that. And I will resume it soon, and this time with English-speaking guests as well.
Look forward to it. Look forward to being on it.
Of course, you guys are invited. We'll be invited.
Right on. Nessie, what about you? Something coming up soon?
Yep. This week, December the 2nd, that'll be this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We're going to Veep the Patriarchy on my channel. We're going to talk about our century of suffrage and women's right to vote and all the work and hard work that went into getting us this far. My lovely co-host Amy's in the chat. She'll be on with me. And then the following 2 weeks from that, on December the 16th at 5 p.m., we're going to be doing it at a Euro-friendly time because I have a Euro-friendly guest. Dan, voice of Geek, is going to join me, and we're just going to lampoon the Monty Python Holy Grail episode. So that's going to be that's going to be so fun. That's going to be so much fun. So come by for some laughs and some somewhat political satire there. So
right on. John, what's coming up on Dwarf?
Well, next week, me and my co-host Aemy,
your other co-host,
will be covering Lord of the Rings. It'll be for the next 3 weeks, and our guests will include such wonderful people as this person down here, Cecilia. For next week, we'll also be joined by Dan, voice of Geekdom, and Carol Brown. And then in the coming weeks for the other films, you'll see such people as Aaron M. and also Helen the Clueless Fangirl. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have a lot of fun. All 3 of those streams are going to be at 5 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. So that's a change from usual. At 5 instead of 7, but then once we get through that, we'll move back to our normal time. So
you need to rule them all.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, and then next week on Here Be Dragons, it's my birthday. Technically Saturday is my birthday, but Sunday we're having my celebration stream. Come by, say hi. I'm going to tell you all about I'm just going to sit here and ramble for a couple hours with John and Nessie probably about the stuff that I love the bestest in the whole world. You're probably going to hear about some D&D and some Expanse and maybe a little bit about some Star Wars, other stuff. So yeah, there's no real topic. I just want to hang out. It'll be my 3rd year streaming for my birthday, so we'll do it. And then after that, we're jumping back into some more Expanse coverage. If you want, I will tell you that we're doing the second half of The Mandalorian. I got it on the schedule for December 27th. So the Sunday after Christmas, we'll do the last 3 episodes of The Mandalorian, same style discussion. Not sure who my guests will be, but I've got an idea for a couple of good ones. I'm not going to say any names, but there's a couple of people that I might have a good idea who make great guests for that. Anyway,
familiar faces.
Everyone
that was terrifying.
This channel is
I know. I didn't tell you that was going to happen. But all of a sudden, Pat's face got huge, and the look on your eye was totally worth it. So yeah, lots of great stuff coming up from John, from Nessie, from Cecilia, from myself. Pat, you need to get on the ball. You're a middle-aged man without a podcast. What are you doing?
What are you doing with your life, Pat?
I have to march to my own drum, so
Fair enough. All right. Well, for Nessie, John, Cecilia, and Pat, I am Stephen Stark. Thank you for joining us. And you know what it is, everyone. Until next time, peace and be excellent to each other.
Bye.